I think you'd probably roll your eyes if I told you that these ClickFunnel gurus online are making millions by scamming people just like you and me. Today, I not only want to kind of share the secrets of how they scam you, but I also want to shamelessly pitch my own high-ticket scamming course at the end of this video. And if you stick around to the end, I'll even throw a free Lamborghini as a limited time bonus. But first, can't find this book anywhere. Oh, hey, what's up? Glad you can make it to my place. There was a book that I was actually looking to gift you because I know that you're thinking about doing business, but there's been something really bothering me that's been on my mind for many years now. So you remember back in the day when I quit pharmacy and I was doing high ticket sales for ClickFunnel gurus? So I wanted to tell you a story about that. But it's not just any story, and we just gotta keep it a secret. It's where a lot of the good guys who want to help out people invest into the software called ClickFunnels, and then themselves turn into a ClickFunnels guru. They start manipulating the audience into predatory bait and switch high ticket end programs and use very deceptive marketing tactics, which I'm gonna share with you today because I do not want my best friend, you, becoming a ClickFunnel guru. And I hate to admit, I was a sucker for this many times. So if you don't know, ClickFunnels was this really popular online builder. It would help you host your courses and help set up these sales funnels, basically these journeys where people would buy and like how you get people to like, know, and trust you. This was really popular back in the 2018s and all that. And if you've ever been targeted for the ads, you're probably like, how the hell do they know what I'm going through? Well, my friends, this is all planned. And you're like, how do you know this? Well, my friends, I've seen the good, the bad, the behind the scenes of how these organizations work. And a lot of times I'm just like you. I see these businesses are making a difference, they're really helping people, but it seemed great at first, but slowly people reveal their true colors of their money-making process of focusing solely on revenue and pretty much bait and switching their clients. And if I could be really honest with you, I've been there. I've been in the heart of everything. So today I'm going to show you all the warning signs and the traps so you don't fall for them. Also, if you want to kind of sell things ethically in your own way without manipulating people, there's a way to do that, which we'll talk about more. But we're going to go into the 5 different ways that they use to clickbait you and get you to buy. Keep in mind, no one is ever holding a gun to your head. You ultimately have the choice whether you want to buy or not, but you can't say that they don't psychologically manipulate you. And just to give you a preview, we're going to be talking a lot about urgency, predatory financing, the art of gaslighting, and way more too. Because knowing these tricks, by the way, is more than just eye-opening. It's about protecting ourselves and promoting a world where selling isn't about sleazy tactics or tricking you or the gotcha type of things. It's about genuine trust and advisory. And how I like to think about it is a decision catalyst. And it's just like talking to a really great friend. My goal is to really show you how to empower your clients rather than manipulate them. And hopefully I can find that book in the process that I've been meaning to recommend to you for months now. Sorry about my crazy room, by the way, but we're going to go over the first tactic, psychologically crafted urgency, aka FOMO. Chances are we probably have all gone through this feeling of missing out. You know, we see this when people post up their Coachella tickets or, you know, they're getting married and you're scrolling on your Instagram and you're 30 years old and you're still single. Really a little bit too relatable. But anyways, this actually happens in the marketing world a lot. And it's that nagging feeling of act now or miss out forever. And a lot of times with a lot of marketers, this is their dream weapon. And sadly, a lot of unfortunate consumer trap over here. Before I kind of go into tactics, I want to share a story about how I actually bought my first high ticket program. And I fell victim to a lot of these things because, you know, you kind of don't know the game if you're not in it, right? I just have like bullet points, but one of the first programs, the first high ticket programs. So for many years, I wanted to leave pharmacy and go into digital marketing. Bought a lot of programs from people like Ramit Sethi who had these courses, but never in my life have I ever experienced this like high ticket experience. And the first time I ever found out about it was actually through a friend. His name was Matt. He promoted this program on his YouTube channel. And when my dad passed away, he was like, hey, I think it actually might help you out a lot. I remember clicking onto a page. I was like, dude, who's this weird guy in a suit? And it was actually, believe it or not, Dan Locke, You guys can probably do some research about how I feel about him. I remember going onto the page and there was this infamous like only 7 slots left, right? But every single time you refresh the page, it was always 7 slots. But when I started diving to the ClickFunnel world and like understanding how marketing works, I realized you can control all this with software. And that's why ClickFunnels was so popular, because you could actually set these things, to set these timers, to set these things where it's like, hey, don't go. Before you go, check this out, right? So there's a lot of that. And I remember a lot of times too, like they would be like, hey, there's this live training. And half the time, these were all pre-recorded things, right? This was like the Wild Wild West back then. And so your boy, never buying a high ticket program, bought the first program, then bought a second program called Inner Circle. So I bought like high ticket closer, right? Certification program. I have to say it was a really great program. I met so many friends. It was my first start. Definitely don't recommend it these days for sure. I bought his high ticket mastermind thing. He was building something called a value ladder, where it's a series of offers to get you to the next level. The only problem with it is that they didn't fulfill on it. But that whole customer journey, what are some of the things that they use? And chances are you've probably gone through a similar like thing too. If you ever bought anything online, you've seen these tactics. So let's break down some of these techniques, the ones that make us feel like we're about to miss out the opportunity of a lifetime, and some of the red flags. Number 1, fake countdown timers. So basically you'll see these on the page and basically it will say there's only X amount of time left, and it creates a false urgency of ticking clocks where it's off. But the thing that you don't know is that you can set like cookies for that single person that comes on, so it's custom to every person that goes on the page. Ethically, I don't think this is a great way. I think capacity-based scarcity, where it's like I can only serve X amount of people, I think that's the best one. But a lot of gurus love the timers. The second thing, live webinars. This was really popular again 5 years ago. These days, not as popular. You'll notice like there's these different programs called like Webinar Jam. There's tons of them, by the way. But basically, you can book in a slot to watch a free training. But usually, not only do they say they're like a once in a lifetime event when they're actually pre-recorded sessions, but rather than a few training, maybe they'll give you 1 or 2 golden nuggets that you can take away from it. But a lot of times, they're just 60-minute pitch sessions, which is crazy. And also during these sessions, as they're pitching you, they're giving you these like limited bonuses to drive more and more scarcity. And since you don't want to miss out, that's what gets you to buy their program, their high ticket thing, or to submit an application to. Number 3, artificial scarcity. So this was the one I was talking about earlier. It's the classic, only X spots left. That never changes. In my opinion, there's good ways to use this and there's bad ways to use this. I personally like to make sure that things get updated, you know? Maybe you can't update every single thing. Like if I'm a one-on-one coaching program and I'm high ticket, I can't serve thousands of people. There's no freaking way like in a single month, right? And so there's better ways to do it, but you know, the artificial scarcity of X amount of slots left, this is so classic. Oh my God, you talk about red flags. I think about red flags with like my ex-girlfriends and all the ABG tendencies and stuff. Like I'm sure you've seen the memes about the ABG red flags, how they love drinking Hennessy, they love going to raves, and these are all the red flags that you should know and probably should stay away from. This one is the same for marketing though. It's called the Proof app. If you've never heard of the Proof app, basically these are like fake notifications of people buying, and it creates a bandwagon effect. So what you'll see is this like little pop-up in the corner and it'll be like, someone just bought, Charlie just bought. These are all fake people, by the way. They are not real. And this was very, very popular with all the ClickFunnel gurus back in the day. So again, it's giving you that false sense of FOMO that you're missing out. Like there's the cool kids club and I'm not in. This was a really interesting one. And this is why I don't really care that much about testimonials personally. But a lot of people will actually manipulate their testimonials. So they're either A, really, really close friends, or B, they've paid them to sell a story. I remember one of my clients, they were a ClickFunnel guru, and I was going through the testimonials because I was like trying to figure out, okay, who are the people buying this? Like, what is the ideal avatar? And I saw another guru and I was like, what the heck? So I cross-referenced their offer and I was like, oh my God, these guys just exchanged testimonials, probably weren't even part of the program. Now I can't prove this because I didn't have access to like the credit card payments or the Stripe accounts where I could see the transfer of money. So that's why I'm saying like with testimonials, you gotta be very, very careful about who these people are. Sometimes they're paid actors, just like like the old Tom Vu, like cringe 1990s, like I will make you rich, like type of things, right?
Years ago, I was washing dishes, being busboy, and doing many odd jobs. I know exactly what you feel.
And something I like to do is cross-reference these people and see who are these people, what are they doing now, and all that too. The last one is time-limited discounts. We alluded to this earlier, but it talks about this exclusive offer that isn't really exclusive at all. You know, oftentimes they will say this offer is only available for the first 24 hours, right? Half the time you can just go back to the checkout page and just pay for it. There's really no scarcity there. Or if there is, you just re-opt in. There's this whole cool trick with Gmail. You can just do like your email with the addition sign plus whatever you want to type it at gmail.com, and it will still go to your primary email inbox. And before you go on like harassing your favorite like influencer about, oh my God, you use a countdown timer, I have to stress, like just because you use these tactics doesn't mean that you're a ClickFunnels guru or you're the worst person in the world. It really goes back down to intent, because sometimes there are things that are limited, like our time. We want to do things in a certain time zone. Does that mean someone is a ClickFunnels guru? Absolutely not. And just understanding this, the awareness, just like during my therapy sessions, being aware of my feelings and what's going on can just protect you. And what a lot of these gurus try to do is try to emotionally rush your decision, to add some sort of stress, to trigger your amygdala, which causes that fight, flight, or freeze reaction. So let's talk about the second thing, predatory financing, which honestly, it gets kind of dark here. And sorry for my cable management. You can tell it's not my forte. So you might be asking, what exactly is predatory financing? According to ChatGPT, involves convincing you to make financial commitments that are not in your best interests, often leading to debt or financial strain. And unfortunately, this was all too common in something like the ClickFunnels world, especially on the high ticket sales team. If you don't know what high ticket sales is, it's basically like having a sales calls for really premium online offers. They can go anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 to 20 to even 100K offers. It's not uncommon. And you might be like, whoa, this is a lot of money, but it's relative to the client, right? Usually the 100K offers are more toward B2B or real estate masterminds and all this crazy shit. But the ones I'm really focusing on are on the lower end, where people just don't have the means. They're already in a tough situation and they're pressuring them to do more. So get this, back in the day, I was on a high ticket sales floor. I was still learning sales at the time because obviously I took Dan Locke's high ticket closing program and it didn't really help me too much. I was still struggling. I was actually on probation, almost about to lose my contract. So I was listening to what everyone was doing. And one of the people I met was actually Ty Lopez's old sales manager, which is kind of crazy. He actually is a really great guy. Something that I did not feel that comfortable about was like him talking about things like, you know, how much credit do you have on each of your cards? Do you know the credit limits? What's your credit score? All these different things. And this was on these strategy calls, right? And what they would do if you could not afford it, they would ask also your available cash too. But what they would do, tell you to put these on your credit cards, tell you to open up a new line of credit. And it gets even worse, I'll allude to it later. But they would kind of close the door on you and be like, well, you know, technically you could do this if you really wanted to. What's really stopping you? And then that gets you into a very dicey place, right? The problem here is a lot of the solutions that they have are high interest. And that's the part that they don't tell you. Like if you want to do it at a 20% interest rate or 30% APR on your credit cards, be my guest, you are more than happy to do that. I mean, you have that credit and that's your decision ultimately, right? It's no one else's decision. If you are really young and naive and don't know this, this can actually put you into a really bad situation. Now, there are ways around it. There's things like 0% APR cards and other ways to do it. But basically, let's pretend for a second you're on a strategy call, aka a sales call or hardcore sales call. They do the awkward price drop, right? They're like, so Kevin, this program is $10,000. Pause. This is the classic Wolf of Wall Street that they teach you, right? And in your mind, you're just like, oh, this is a lot of money. I can't afford this. This is like a few months worth of pay just for me to invest into this. You voice that out and then the salesperson, they're like, that's not a problem. Tell me, if you did have the funds, is this something that could actually work for you? Like in that Jerry Minor tonality. And you say, yes, it would. It would definitely change my life. And then they say, I can appreciate that, money might be an issue from what you told me. Do you mind if I suggest a recommendation? And you being like, oh my God, I don't want this FOMO, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. Once you say yes, it is game over. That is the trap where they go in for the kill. And the conversation goes into not buying anymore, but really going into trying to manipulate you to stretch your finances to the limit. Now, how do they do this actually? Well, let's go over some of the tactics that they use to pressure and manipulate you into making a decision. And of course, you can't think about any of these because they'll make you make your decision right away because they don't want you to think about it. They don't want you to emotionally regulate and just be like, hey, I just need to think about things. I want to make sure I'm making the best decision. A true advisor would advise you do that. And I advise my clients to do that all the time. Anyways, let's go into their techniques of how they actually manipulate you. The first one that they use is result-based guarantees. These are promises of certain financial outcomes that play on aspirations. These are also known as performance guarantees and all that. It's more common with like those make money offers or what they call business opportunity offers. So let's say if you're starting an e-commerce store or any of these things where they're just like, we guarantee that you're gonna make $25,000 or your money back. And a lot of these things, they have to be very, very careful because there's something called earnings claims. You cannot say that something will make X amount of dollars. It is illegal by the FTC, at least in the States. If you're in like a different country, no one gives about what the FTC cares about. So there's that. But then there's these guarantees that come into play that I was talking about. And I've seen this a lot with like any make money offers where they're like, we guarantee that you'll make X amount of dollars or your money back. What they don't tell you is like, if I'm an unethical person, do you really think I'm gonna give you your money back? Is it more likely that I'm gonna ghost you and never hear from you again? They can guarantee whatever you want, but it doesn't mean that they'll actually honor that commitment either, especially if you're talking to a Sith Lord. Really? Are you gonna trust them? I wouldn't. Remember, a lot of these salespeople that you talk to, a lot of them are actually my friends and are actually really good advisors. But a lot of them will sweet talk you and manipulate into a decision. So just be very wary of these guarantees and all that too. And sometimes there's conditional things too. There's certain things that you have to make these guarantees. We'll talk about it later. Now let's talk about the next thing, credit limits and leverage capital. This is a tactic where they encourage you to use high interest credit cards for purchases, often in high risk scenarios. If you're trying to start any sort of business, there's a high propensity that you will fail on your first venture. And it's okay to do that. What's not okay is to get yourself into a ton of high interest debt, because the thing we don't realize is that if we quit or if we cannot financially sustain ourselves, we automatically lose the game of entrepreneurship. It's much like anything. Once you stop playing, you automatically lose. So don't put yourself in that position. Now, if you want to use something called 0% APR cards, usually it's for a set amount of periods, be my guest, but still be very cautious about this. This isn't free money, and we can talk about how to make a better decision later, but that's something also to keep in mind. All right, let's go over the next thing that these closers or high ticket sales people will use. This one is subprime lending companies. Let's say your credit is shot, like you're like low 500s or, like pretty low. That's not a problem. That's okay. But what they'll do oftentimes is recommend you a subprime lending company. These are companies that will offer you high interest loans with very bad terms. Often you're paying almost like double or triple like what you normally pay, but it's on terms. Because you have no options, they're preying on you. They're like, how else are you going to retire your mom if you don't take this out? And it's just digging yourself in a deeper and deeper hole. Even worse, these companies will double dip because they collect a referral fee for referring them over to that subprime lending company too, which is really, really bad. In my opinion, if you're even considering these options, you should just avoid them altogether. It's not worth it. If I could be really, really honest, there's one story that I'll never forget where I was listening on this sales call for someone because I was still new. I'll never forget the time where I saw someone being persuaded to max out all their credit cards, do the subprime loans, apply for more credit cards just for a program. It was not for a done-for-you service or anything like that, just to get the knowledge, because the salesperson, who also probably needed money, they pressured the person, they manipulated this reality where if you do this program, you will see X result. And honestly, I think that is so up. I think one, it's on the consumer side where you need to educate yourself before even entertaining business. If you're that easily fooled, this is not for you, and you need to learn how to do due diligence. But also it's on the closer side too, because they know what's happening and they're taking advantage of these people's ignorance tax, as Hormozy says. In fact, if you encounter me on any sales calls with people, if you ask me how much can I make, dude, that is a red flag with the program. I highly do not recommend taking on those clients if you are running your coaching business in the future. And if you're closing, I highly recommend not doing it because it's just not ethical, in my opinion. But if you're a Dark Sith Lord, be my guest. Again, just because you offer a guarantee of some sort, or even offer a solution of 0% APR cards, or dive into someone's personal information, because for me, I get the sense that they're stretching themselves financially, that does not make you a ClickFunnel guru. Again, ethical businesses, they will disqualify these types of people or suggest alternatives that are more aligned, that are also in the client's best interest too. But that's really hard to find. Let's steer into something that's even more sinister. It's the art of gaslighting. And you probably heard of what gaslighting is from, things on TikTok, Instagram, in relationships, right? But it's just as bad, if not even worse, in the real world. So if you're like a millennial like me and you don't know the term of gaslighting, this is what ChatGPT says. Gaslighting in sales involves manipulating customers into doubting their own decisions or perceptions, making them more susceptible to manipulation. It's all about bending your reality to make a sale. And trust me, it's a very, very slippery slope. Not gonna lie, sounds like a lot of my relationships in my 20s where I didn't really want to commit. I would future bait and all this sort of stuff. There's all these cool terms I saw on Reddit, but yeah, probably all these red flags back in the day. And how do I know that people gaslight? Because on high ticket sales floors, when you're new, just like I was reading all the books on sales and I was looking at what the top performers were doing. And these things are actually praised on high ticket sales floors because guess what? They're bringing in the most money. But I will never forget the time when, someone had the financial ability to do it. They could start right away, but there's just so much hesitation on the client's end. And most people would be like, okay, it seems like there's a bit of hesitation. What's on your mind, right? Saying something like that. But I remember this guy, he's like, well, it's really interesting. How else are you going to achieve your goals without this program? If you don't do anything, what's going to change in the future? And it's kind of like taking one of these books like by Tony Robbins and then throwing it in your face, right? And just being like, you need to make a change or nothing else is going to happen in your life. But something that we don't realize too is like, how do we know we're not running into a worse situation after all? Who is an external person to decide your fate when really it should be the clients, because they're the ones that deal with the consequences. Like, you don't see the salesperson deal with the consequences of financial debt or anything like that, or put in the hard work. So easy to tell people what to do, but then really at the end of the day, we should be empowering decisions versus manipulating them like that. And so the core essence of a lot of this gaslighting is let's say if you're on a call personally, you're on a sales call for a program or a solution or an agency or a freelancer, and maybe the person that you're speaking to maybe says something that makes you second guess your own thoughts. This isn't always bad, but if they have the wrong intent, it's like a mental game of chess and they're always 2 moves ahead of you to manipulate you and just to get what's in their best interest. The only difference between me, someone like myself, or a true advisor and high ticket scammer, right? Let's call him a high ticket scammer, is the intent. If a trusted advisor will often try to recommend something that's in the client's best interest, or really understand to seek genuine clarity and understanding. Whereas a high ticket scammer, they're just going to try to get you in these logic traps and just make you feel really bad and distort your reality. You might be asking how do you do that? And so these are the classic gaslighting techniques you might encounter. It's kind of like a magician where once you learn the secrets of what they're doing, it loses its power. So let's get into this. We'll start with number 1, pricing psychology. This is not the worst thing in the world, by the way, but a lot of times in the ClickFunnel world, especially in these 2 books that are so classic in the digital marketing world, they teach you how to build funnels, and then they promote ClickFunnels at the end. Still a good read. I'd recommend most people read them, but they recommend most of the pricing to end in 7 or 9 because it seems like it's a lower price. If for some reason we have higher conversions when we see those numbers. It's $10,000 versus $9,997. So that's a minor one. You see one less digit Another one is getting to yes. So a lot of times you'll see this in scenes like The Boiler Room or Wolf of Wall Street. If you watch my free 3-hour high ticket closing course, I talk about like how they use these micro yeses to get you to make a bigger commitment. For example, do you want to change your life? Yes. Do you want to help retire your mom? Yes. Do you want to give me your credit card? Yes, that was a bad example, but you get the point, right? By making these micro commitments, they manipulate you to yes. And there's this old school book that I don't even have in this library because I didn't really like it. I actually have a copy back in Boston, my home, but it's called Getting to Yes. And it's using these subtle micro commitments that kind of nudge you towards agreeing without even realizing it. A lot of us do this. But in psychology, there's this phenomenon called foot in the door phenomenon, where literally salespeople used to put their foot in the door. Hey, just one more second. Do you just have like X amount of time? It's like all these micro yeses that get people commit to yes. Very interesting. They also have the fake social proof app, which I was talking about earlier. It's all these fake endorsements or fake testimonials or these fake things that blah, blah, blah just bought, right? And it distorts your reality because you think a lot of people are paying for this, right? So that's one way. But the other thing I didn't talk about is like people will use fake social proof with their friends, or they'll pay for articles in Forbes, Fast Company. And that's why you cannot trust any of these review sites usually, because either A, they'll pay for a takedown of a negative review, or B, these are all paid for, right? These are companies that or publications that it's not a huge flex in this world to just be like, hey, I was in Forbes magazine or whatever. So what? If you have a bank account, it doesn't really matter. It's not based off of clout. So that's something else to be aware of. Oh my God, there's this other one, which some of my ethical friends, they use this too, but this one bugs out me. It's called the value stack. So basically, this is how a value stack works. Usually at the end of a webinar pitch or even a sales conversation, they'll be like, you get our blah, blah, blah system. This is worth $10,000. You get our something, something checklist, and this is worth $1,000. And then you get one-on-one time with me. This is worth $20,000. You get all this for the low price of $500. I'm like, what did you pull up these numbers, dog? Like, they're arbitrary numbers. And so what they're trying to do is they're inflating the perceived value of an offer to just make sure that you're getting a steal. I never use these on my sales calls because it doesn't matter what they think it's worth. Like, there's better ways, there's more organic ways to price anchor someone. Explicitly say, my time is worth blah, blah, blah. They don't care unless they're in a very financial, like desperate state. Some people fall for it. And like, personally, I don't like the value stack. And then of course, there's the Kevin Wynn tactic, and probably Vivian or Tiffany Wynn ABG tactic of manipulative questioning. This is the one that you could probably see in relationships a lot of time, where I was alluding to this, but like, how else are you going to achieve your goals without doing something, without a program like this? They say a lot of which bugs the out of me. But what they're doing is playing on your insecurities and ambitions to just sway your decision. But I've been on high ticket sales programs on sales calls just because I'm not always on the other side. I'm a consumer too. And I remember this person that I really look up to. I really liked their content. I found their content super valuable. I was on the verge of buying. But I don't know, the pricing like threw me off, you know? And honestly, at the time, my business wasn't doing as well. And I was like having second thoughts about it. I remember the sales rep that they had basically was trying to convince me that if I did not buy their program, I was basically sabotaging my future. They had a way of twisting my words, and I wish I had that sales call so I could show you guys, but they were twisting my words that like almost had me convinced that I was a horrible person for not investing into something. And if you feel these feelings of animosity or just like cringe after a call, your gut is probably trying to communicate to something to you, and you should really take some time to just settle and just like think, or even speak to another person. You know, there's nothing wrong if you want to speak to another person. Not saying that we all will get along with like the person that we're talking to, but if you believe that the person you're talking to isn't working in your best interest, then yeah, you have every right to do so. Another sign, by the way, if you feel like you're being gaslit, is like the next day you have buyer's remorse. They make the sale and poof, you never hear from them again. You know, not to say like, you know, sometimes even for me, I try to check up on all the people that buy from me, but I'm also like very, like very busy, and I only have so much energy too. And so like, you know, if you message them or you just never hear from them again, that's a good sign that they just conned you into your money. And this is even after they promised the world to you and promised to be there no matter what. Yeah, up. Let's go into the next tactic, contracts and fine print. Because the goal is not only to make the sale, is to make sure that they keep the sale and to prevent you from refunding or anything like that. Now, just as a caution, if you are on the consumer side, you're actually buying something, you have to be responsible of doing your best not to hand that money over to begin with, because you're already in a disadvantage area. We'll talk about the ways to mitigate this. So picture this. You just said yes to what it seems like a dream program. Your heart is racing and you feel excited. And then when you actually start the program, it's nothing like you imagined. The 24/7 support is never there. What that salesperson promised you was over exaggerated. And what you find is like a lot of times with these high ticket programs, the coaching ends up being videos and just some random Q&A calls that are just once in a blue moon. And a part of you feels really duped. And if this is you, I feel for you. So what do? You maybe request a refund or maybe even file a chargeback with your credit card company, but they deny it. How come? And it turns out they are actually 10 steps ahead of you because they've already thought of these scenarios. It's like jumping into a jiu-jitsu match with a black belt. They already know. So let's go into the common tactics that they use. Number one, sneaky ass contracts. So it usually always comes down to sneaky ass contracts. If I could afford it, I would always have a lawyer review everything just to make sure that I'm not getting. It might save you a lot more money in the long run. But half the time, if you're in a B2C solution, you just don't have the time or money for a lawyer. And that's kind of unfortunate, but that's how our society is. Maybe you can find one on Fiverr, I don't know. And so all these kind of fall into the category of sneaky contract. The first thing I think about is misleading guarantees. So typically there might be a conditional refund. If you don't know what a conditional refund is, it's basically before we issue a refund, you have to show proof of work. You have to show that you use X amount of resources and gave this a try before we actually refund you. The ethical companies, they'll not want to hold on to money. They'll just hand it off and just end it resentment free, or at least have a conversation with you just to see what they can do. Maybe the company actually has hard costs and they can't refund the full thing, but at least you can come to some arbitration or some mutual agreement where it's like, hey, I understand part of it was my responsibility, but I also understand what was promised wasn't delivered. So you can end off amicably as well. And maybe get some free bonuses out of it, who knows? The most common one I see is like in the ClickFunnels world is the 14-day guarantee. Like you have 14 days to refund. But what they also don't tell you is what is considered the start date / end date. Is it the start date since payment? Is the start date since like your onboarding call? If you have an onboarding call, like what is it? And it's just never as straightforward as it seems. So always read the terms and conditions for that sort of stuff too. And make sure to screen capture everything that you have on the sales page, because then you have leverage against them too. And I've also seen these scenarios where, and let's say you get really upset, you file a credit card chargeback. There's a lot of evidence that you have to submit sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't go your way. So a lot of people will throw their hands up and be like, oh shoot, I'm screwed. But what a lot of people don't tell you is that if you leave a negative review in a public place like YouTube and it starts going viral, usually the company will reach back out to you because it will be hurting their sales. So that is a really great way to get your money back. But also another thing too is like a lot of times what they'll make you do is sign an NDA about like how the resolution was done. It's just so messy. And so that's why I really suggest that you just don't even get involved with these companies too. The tough part is like you paid $10,000 or you paid $8,000. And this sort of stuff even happens to the best of us. So I have a good buddy I consider a really close friend, really smart. He actually got blindsided by a 14-day guarantee for a high ticket program. It was more of a B2B, it was like essentially a $36,000 program, right? He had a 14-day guarantee. And the crazy thing is they submitted their return request on the last day, but it was too late. What happened was that the start and end date were completely different. That's when it really hit me. These contracts aren't just paperwork, they're a minefield, especially if you're working with someone in a different country. You just have to be very, very careful. And it turned out the starting date was the date of purchase, not onboarding. So if you can get recordings, if you can record your calls about what was said, what was promised, that will skew more of that evidence for you, right? And the truth is, it even happens to the smartest people. It's part of the game, and we just have to learn the skill of doing due diligence and really focusing on the problems that we have that we need to fix with these programs and all that. So pretty much TLDR, always read the fine print before signing anything. If something is unclear, don't hesitate to ask, because it's better to, have your money and ask these questions than give your money and never get this resolved. And I would say the major things that you always want to be clear about on every single call is the start/end date, the deliverables, that what they're actually going to deliver to you, the actual deliverables, and also any sort of guarantees, just for clarity's sake. Also payments, the exact days for the payments too, every 30 days, every 28 days. But honestly, if you have a lawyer friend, it's probably best to talk to them and stuff. Maybe you can use ChatGPT like me and just review the terms and conditions as well. So yeah. And by the way, every company should have their terms and conditions on their website too. At least every ethical company should have that. Let's talk about the fifth tactic. It's the endless upsell cycle. So imagine this, you've bought your program, feeling satisfied with the decision enough to pass the conditional guarantee period. But then midway while you're in a program, you get this email, or maybe inside Kajabi or whatever software, or ClickFunnels, since we're talking about ClickFunnels, right? Maybe inside ClickFunnels, you get this notification about another program, or there's this special event where, everybody needs to show up, and then they sell you another offer. Maybe this offer is we understand that you're getting knowledge or something like that, but if you want to join in a more elite group, join our mastermind or inner circle or whatever they have. That's a really bad pitch, by the way, but that's what they essentially do. But when you buy that offer, there's another offer, and another offer, and another offer after that. And it seems like it's never-ending game of one more thing, right? This endless cycle of endless offers really can leave consumers like us just feeling really frustrated, questioning whether what was the point of the initial investment if they're just going to string me along? How much more will I have to invest in? And honestly, if you end up buying all the products, is financially depleted. So I actually personally went through this. If you remember my vlogs, I went to Dan Locke's Closers in Black. And I was already part of the inner circle, which was $200 per month. But then I remember the famous Dan Locke pitch. I can't remember exactly what was it, but I remember standing up and I was like, oh my God, this really resonates with me. So I remember going to this event called Closers in Black. It's basically where we all wear suits and all that sort of stuff. It's a black and white event. And it was a chance for us to just go to a bunch of business webinars and just chop it up with a lot of different people. It started with the original high ticket closer program. And I remember at the event, basically what happened was he was telling the story, it really resonated with me. And then he pretty much announced his high ticket millionaire program. This was the inner circle of the inner circle. And it was a 25K program. Even for me, I was like, oh, this is quite a bit. It was a 25K program, or it was $2,500 per month. It was basically a payment plan. As soon as he announced it, there was a whole rush to the back, and they were pretty much people were tackling over each other and all that. I kind of went through it. I was I'm kind of curious what this is. I'm not very happy that I have to pay $25K for it. The reason why I had a bit of hesitancy was because his previous solutions, they never quite accomplished what he promised before. He promised us, hey, we're going to teach you how to do B2B/B2E deals. Paid a ton of money for that, never happened. And it's just this constant stringing along this whole time of what you want. And now I'll give you the red flags of what I would do differently in the next time, just to protect you. But the other thing too is I want to dissect some of the key moves in this endless cycle of upselling, because it's important that you know. So let's go into the first thing. There's continuous upsells. So usually this is planned in the customer journey phase. There's an ideal journey that they want you to go through. And as soon as you finish an offer, there's already another offer lined up. Now, this doesn't mean that you're a ClickFunnel guru or anything like that, but typically kind of like what Hormozy says, as soon as you solve one problem, there's an endless amount of other problems that happen. Just like back in college, when I thought I would graduate pharmacy school, I'd be like, oh, my life will be perfect once I get here. But I realized there was a whole other sort of problems. I wasn't happy with my life. I was working for a corporate company, which often felt like corporate gaslighting and all these other things that you probably know about. And this is where we get into kind of the hedonic treadmill of chasing more and more goals, thinking that one day all this will end, but it really doesn't. The second thing that they use is this concept of sunk cost fallacy. So if you don't know what sunk cost fallacy, it usually plays on the psychological type of thing, whereas like, I already invested in this, I'm already in, I might as well invest even more. And they're playing on the investment that you already made and convincing you to not waste the money that you already spent. And there's a false scarcity in upsells, letting you know, like, since it's more intimate, this is more one-on-one, there's only so many slots, and they use the previous tactics as before. Again, you feel like you're missing out or you're a bad customer. You have this parasocial relationship with this person that you bought from, and you feel like you're a bad customer and letting someone down by not buying the product. Like, honestly, if you were to come to me and ask me like, hey, Kevin, should I buy this or not? I'd be like, hey, you know, what are some of the input things that you're trying to do? Input and output goals that you have. So things that we can control and things outside of our control that we're aiming at. And then also look at, hey, what are the core challenges that I'm actually really experiencing? And it really helps to have like a good friend like myself, or like sometimes it helps talking to a salesperson, just know that they are biased. They're most likely they'll be biased. And just talking these things out and asking myself, like, what are the things I've done like already? And how did those turn out? What were the things I really liked? What were the things I didn't really like? I think these are all very, very important questions. And asking yourself during the presentation is like, how is a solution like this actually going to help resolve some of the problems, right? It's so easy to get caught up in the features and benefits, like, oh, you get a mastermind. Oh, you get this, you get that. But something we never go back to is the first principles is like, how is this going to help me on my customer journey or with my goals or anything like that? And if it doesn't, then don't buy it. It's just very, very simple. There's a lot of solutions out on the market. And something I think about is if I sold a program to you or I made an offer to you that didn't align, I wouldn't want your money. I would just want it to be resentment free as possible. But these ClickFunnel gurus, I will tell you, they don't give a about you. They don't know your name. They don't really care about you. They only care if you're a winning testimonial for them, for the malicious type. And just like that, my friend, we've come full circle. Those are all the tricks that the ClickFunnel gurus have kind of used to manipulate you. I hope whether you're creating your own offer that you don't fall for these same tricks or use these same tricks ever again. Not gonna lie, it kind of feels like Harry Potter and Defense of the Dark Arts and stuff like that. Or in Jiu-Jitsu, learning like wrist locks at the same time, even though all wrist lockers belong in hell. Anyways, something to keep in mind, like I said earlier, is like, just because you use one of these tactics doesn't make you a ClickFunnel guru. Actually, you could use majority of these like techniques that we talked about and still be a very, very ethical person. It boils down to ethics and intent of their self-orientation to their clients. Some of the people that I really follow, like Chris Do, Vanessa Lau, Ali Abdal, like a lot of these people that have high ticket offers, they do it very, very ethically. They do like such a great job and they actually give up about their people. And one last thing, you know, it's not all about the numbers and conversion. A good ethical business will be willing not only say that they disqualify people that aren't their ideal target or who are financially stretched, but they'll actually do it. You know, it's an ethic that all these people I know would do, I would do personally, and I hope you would do in your business as well. I know that you're trying to start your business and you're probably wondering, hey, is there a more ethical way to sell? Is there a way that I can do this without selling my soul to the devil? And so I'm here to help you. I'm not gonna upsell you into a high ticket program or anything like that, because honestly, you're my good friend and I want to give something of value to you. On a serious note, like, I don't know why I put so much work in some of these videos and they get 0 views. The algo gods hate me. But I actually have this free, like legit free high ticket sales course all on YouTube. Yes, if you want the slides, you can opt in and all that. But I have all these things to help you sell, how to create your offer without the Wolf of Wall Street vibes, and just empower the people who are buying from you, not manipulate them. It is really my goal just to build the best education out there on the internet that isn't so dry. Sometimes it'll be dry, it is business sometimes, but I'll do my best to make it entertaining as possible. So check out that video, which reminds me of one more thing. I finally found the book. I'll leave it on the table, and that will be the secret to doing well in your business. See you later.